Hello, hello. It's week 3 highlights in the Red Lizard Draft League. This is totally our first take, and I'm here with.
Maracuja, VGC, and we're happy to look over all the creative sets and all the cool matches from week 3.
Exactly. My name, of course, is Fievel. I didn't even introduce myself. And you see it here. We go over all these things that it says here. We have updated all of these beautiful things, and we're going to start with the first game already.
All right, and the first game of week 3 was the Basel City P-Blades versus the Roaring Moon Ravagers. And the P-Blades still undefeated going into week 3, but the Ravagers were just only slayed by the still undefeated Super Tenderbro. So two very strong trainers having a go at each other. And how did they address their opponents in the builder? The P-Blades, surprisingly so in my opinion, decided that it's time to bench their MVP Dragonite. It does make sense on paper though, as it most likely will be a Terrahawk, and the Ravagers would likely respect it very much in the builder, given that it already claimed 10 KOs in the earlier games. So they went with Golden Goat, Ribombi, Thwacky, Ting-Lu, Iron Bundle, and Arcanine Hisui, and the Ravagers brought back Gothitelle to support Fluttermane and Roaring Moon, with Ninetales, Ogerpon Cornerstone, and Conkeldurr to flash it out. I wouldn't expect a Trick Room mode on paper, but with Gothitelle and also Fluttermane, of course, it is something that the P-Blades have to address and respect in team preview. So it is a nice mental warfare. And yeah, game 1 was a slaughter, to be completely honest. And I'm sorry about that, Fievel.
No,
but
it's the truth.
after
the
setting
truth.
up Tailwind, the Terraflying Acrobatics Roaring Moon was just overwhelming. And I did like the Leech Seed on Thwacky that forced Roaring Moon to switch out, but it was inevitable. And the Ravagers were just in complete control. They were cruising through game 1. And game 2, the P-Blades adjusted with Iron Bundle plus Dango, which is nice, versus Roaring Moon and Conkeldurr, and another passive turn 1 by the Ravagers was punished. Conkeldurr went down immediately, and Ninetales hit the field, and it snarled and wisped, and it just neutered the opposition. Very nice tech indeed, and Ting-Lu was basically a non-factor, but it just took too long to whittle it down, especially with the Citrus Berry. And yeah, Ting-Lu just was able to slowly outdamage Ninetales and Roaring Moon and have enough health in the tank to let Dango just clean up the end game. So it was 1-1. And game 3, the P-Blades just made the crucial mistake to only bring special attackers next to Ting-Lu. So it basically was just 3 versus 1, as Ting-Lu and Vessels of Ruin just helped the Ravagers enough that it was again without a chance for the P-Blades. And yeah, the Ravagers just had to play it down well, which they did. And the tech of Superpower on Cornerstone just made it as well, just inevitable. And Golden Goat just fell to Superpower. And that was that. It was a 2-1 victory, but it did feel like that the P-Blades just sneakily stole a game there, because it looked like they were out of their depth. It was a bit hard. And they have to bounce back and maybe bring back Dragonite next week.
Somehow,
We'll see.
somehow we stole 1 point from that, and I'm happy. I take it. Hell yeah. Okay, that was fun. I have to say, getting humbled. We now go to the second game, and that's the Sleepy Cubones versus the Graceland Greninjas. We have Ogerborn, Hearthflame, Lando, T, Klefki, Raikou, the new Monkey Dory, and most importantly, the new Garganackle hitting the scene for the Sleepy Cubones. Monkey Dory and Garganackle, the new duo of the Sleepy Cubones, ready to spread Salt Cure and Poison Chip. which is really cool with the Lando and Ogerpon in the back, potentially ready to finish what's left of the HP bars. And we have Chien-Pao, Torn, Entei, Primarina, Grimmsnarl, Superior. Also Prim and Superior, the new free agent trades for the Graceland Greninjas. Yeah, Chien-Pao, Torn, and Entei here for the Graceland Greninjas in week 3 as well. That core doesn't need much introduction. Now supported by the new players, Prim and Superior, so perhaps we're going to see some pledge stuff happening. That would be very cool. I think those two really nicely fit into the team and present the water, fire, grass core for a bit more variety and balance, because the Chien-Pao, Torn, and Entei, they're all quite rock weak, and it's good that needs some balancing out on that. But what was going down? Game 1 starts, and we see Klefki alongside Garganacl against Superior and Tornadus, who immediately taunts the pesky piece of Salt on the opposing side. But that doesn't actually stop Salt Cure, in case that was the point here. But Terra Poison on Garganacl also takes really good care of the offensive threat that is contrary Superior, getting boosts instead of drops, which looks really scary. But it was not enough. Also the Maranga Berry just boosting the special defense even more. The Terra Poison and the Sunny Day from Klefki made it so Primarina also couldn't do much harm anymore. We go to game 2. It was sadly not much different, as the answers were not enough into the Garganacl, which, to be honest, really is such an annoying Pokemon to play against, and if you are not properly prepared, it will absolutely annihilate you. And it's something everyone should prepare for in the future. The Sleepy Cubones took those 3 points with a 2-0 victory.
Just a little note there. I did think that Happy and the Greninjas, they did a fantastic job in team building, as they knew that Primarina and especially Contrary Superior are the way to go. Unfortunately, I just tagged it out completely. I knew that I had with Maranga Berry Terra Poison, it wouldn't do much. Maranga Berry boosts special defense after a special hit. And with Sunny Day and Klefki, I just knew that even Hyper Voice from Primarina wouldn't do enough. And yeah, funny thing is that just everything is Soul Cure weak. Even Steel types and Water types take even more damage from Soul Cure. So it was just a Garganacl game, and it did what it had to do. Yeah, but going on to our next highlight, we have Nothing Creatives versus the Motor City Mugs. Both trainers were able to claim a win in their first 2 weeks, so both stand at 1-1. And it's sand versus snow, so it's nice weather war. And yeah, also just on paper, I would heavily favor the Nothing Creative, because Seb is just an exceptional trainer, and I still love you, Sensatio. No stabs at you, but I do heavily favor Seb in this matchup. And yeah, we see the core, the Sand core, T-Tar and Excadrill, he brought it. They added a Tailwind mode with Noivern and the Mungus as a defensive backbone, in Emerald Therian and Heatran just to flash it out. And the Mugs decided it is not worth to opt into any sort of weather war. They left Articuno and Ninetales at home. But they brought Rain Dance and Thunderous, of course. So they wanted to still change the weather, but with Prankster, it is much easier than just to have a constant switch back and forth. And again, they just relied on Ursaluna, Single Strike Urshifu, and Talonflame to just show their strength. And Hydrapple and Scizor, maybe they can put in some work as well. And game 1 was indeed a constant back and forth. In the early games, Nothing Creative had the upper hand, but thanks to Focus Session Noivern to just block the Ice Punch in a very nice way. But a speedy Ursaluna in the end game just reverse swept with Earthquake after it got the Flame Orb activated. So Motor City Mugs 1-0 up. But in game 2, Seb truly showed his strength and adapted with an Emrys, Therion, and Amoonguss versus Shifu and Thunderous. And even though the Mux got a burned Ursaluna in perfect position in turn 2, it just got denied by defensive plays and switches. It's killed itself to burn chip after hitting into protects twice in a row, so that threat was dealt with, and Nothing Creative didn't even lose a mon in the process. It was indeed a 4-0 skill diff victory in game 2, and it was a bad omen for game 3 as well. The Mux, they led the same for a third time, and they had the upper hand here. I hate to say it. Excadrill got down turn 1, but instead of just keeping up the pressure and just clicking Scarf Close Combat into everything, Sensation switched out Urshifu single strike, and the game just crumbled. Again, Ursaluna just died to Magma Storm and Burn Ticks after hitting the field, and also again hitting into Protects. So yeah, it was just Magma Storm Heatran that cleaned up game 3. I wonder if it was Zoom Lens or Wide Lens, because it didn't miss. And after all that, it just means back to the drawing board for the Motor City Mux. It felt like, especially game 2 and 3, that wrong calls just sealed their fate. They were in it, but they just got the 50-50s wrong. And a very strong looking Ursaluna was just figured out. It couldn't do anything. Yeah, but with that being said, Amoonguss just skill diff in game 2 was indeed a true pleasure to watch.
That being said, of course, I was always rooting for the Motor City Mux, of course, from the start. Just because.
Shout out Sensatio.
We go to the next game. It was Huge Power versus the Yin and Yangs. And here we have on the side of the Yin and Yangs the Rillaboom, Ogerpon, Wellspring, Iron Crown, Screamtail, Torracat, and Flamigo. A balanced core with Rilla and Torracat, fake out cycling, nothing out of the ordinary here from the Yin and Yangs. Bringing Iron Crown and Screamtails. Screamtails with the option of manually setting up that psychic terrain that Iron Crown loves so much. But also Iron Crown really threatening, just naturally having this strong type advantage into this Wheezing Galar with being Psychic and Steel into this Poison Fairy type. That was performing so well last week. And of course the Flamigo is here too, suggesting that the Ogerpon might have another Swords Dance set that it can copy, that it sets up with all the fake out support. And Ogerpon Wellspring just a really good answer into the Urshifu Rapid Strike, potentially just really taking good care of it with the Follow Me Water Absorb combination. And looks like a strong selection of Pokemon here. Huge Power, we have Urshifu Rapid Strike, we have Kilowattrel, Chi-Yu, Weezing, Galar, Regigigas, and the Lapras. And Huge Power with the duo again, the strong threatening duo of Weezing and Regigigas together with Ursh and Chi-Yu. Very offensive. And also Kilowattrel is there to potentially just click Tailwind, Heatwave, and if the opposing lead is like too passive, then immense damage is just right around the corner. So game 1 begins. Regigigas Weezing versus Crown and Screamtails. Screamtails manually setting up the Psychic terrain and Helping Hand Expanding Force just cleanly one-hit KOs the Terra Fairy Weezing with neutral damage. Even after Crown falls, Waterpon is too strong and is too strong an opponent into Water Pawn is too strong. 1 second. Water Pawn is just too strong. That's just the end of that sentence. Game 2. Kilowattrel and Lapras with a Tailwind plus Icy Wind combo for the huge power gamers. And after Wattrel goes down, Chi-Yu setting up a nasty plot. Sadly, the support wasn't enough, and a single Ivy Cottrell takes it out before it can do anything with those boosts. The Fake Outers and Wellspring are too well positioned and take out the second game as well. So it was a lot of damage presented here by the Yin and Yangs in both games. The Psychic Terrain, the Iron Crown, of course, very scary. Also currently in our regulation F, very scary. So finally the Yin and Yangs got to show that off, what harm it can do, especially with the partner Screamtail.
Yes, and it was a very nice game to watch. I do love it when opposing Pokemon are just answered in the builder, and just Psychic Terrain plus Expanding Force is really smart, and it just can steal a victory on turn 1, which is fantastic, and I do really enjoy that. But coming to our second last game of the week, it was the Goldenrod Galates versus the Galarian Phantoms. It was Spam versus Rain. Shout out to Regulation H right there. And the Galates going with their Truant Testicore, Pelipper, Archaludon, set up Raging Bolt, Clefable as a redirection mon, and just Ludicolo and Scrafty for some spice. And the Phantoms, on the other hand, go with Indeedee, Armor Rouge, Sneasler, Infernape. Nothing new. They all just were putting in work in the last 2 weeks. Also Metagross. And the new addition of Garchomp also made the team. On paper, I do think I'd favor the Galates. If the Pelipper runs White Guard and Archaludon potentially Assault Vest, it looks really strong, even with Snarl and everything. And Suga, on the other hand, and the Phantoms, they just showed that Spam is really, really strong if you just get the mind games right. And that's exactly what happened. In game 1, it was Pelipper, Archaludon versus Indeedee, Armor Rouge. Turn 1, Pelipper clicked White Guard, but sadly Armor Rouge missed the Meteor Beam, but the mind game was won. Turn 2, Pelipper switches out, no White Guard, followed by Helping Hand boosted Expanding Force. Ludicolo went down, mind game won again. Also going Terra Ground just to avoid the Electro Shot added insult to injury. And turn 3, White Guard again by Pelipper, but Terra Ground, Terra Blast by Armor Rouge. Mind game won again. And from this point, the game was just over. And game 3, the Galates chose to lead Clefable versus Infernape and Sneasler. And the turn 1 Sword Stance looked very strong on Sneasler, but the delayed Tailwind on turn 2 from Pelipper was exactly what the Galates needed, and Pelipper finally got the revenge for just missing all the White Guards game 1. And I do think the Confusion Self-Hit mattered a lot, but that's the game we play. And in game 3, it was back to Mind Games, it was back to Helping Hand, Expanding Force, and again, there was no White Guard, and the game was over. And yeah, let me just say that if you face the Phantoms, you better get those mind games right.
Exactly. And now we come to my personal highlight game this week. It was the Super Tandabros versus the Apple Isle Arcanines. The Super Tandabros coming in with the Blood Moon Ursaluna, Torkoal, Lilligant, the Tornadus Therian, Corviknight, Stonejourner. Very trick roomy lineup with Torkoal and the Blood Moon Ursaluna, but no apparent Trick Room setter, which leads me to expect a Turbo Bear kind of build that works well in Tailwind And Torkoal here to enable Lilligant and maybe have some after you shenanigans. Stonejourner here to bring us White Guard against the Snarl or Overdrive from Hydreigon or Toxtricity. Corv and Tornadus just really solid into Ogerpon and both fit this bulky offense team, I guess, so well when you keep in mind that just obviously Corviknight is a really bulky guy, but also the regenerator ability on the Tornadus is nothing to underestimate. Then on the other side, we have Smeargle, Toxtricity, Morgrem, Ogerpon, Hydreigon, and Okidogi. We have double fake out on Smeargle and Morgrem with Prankster and Fast Spores here to support the big damage from Toxtricity's Overdrive and Sludge Bombs. Double Follow Me as well. And potentially Screens. So very potent support lineup for the toxic. What is it? What is that animal? Is it an animal? I don't know. Lizard. I guess it's a lizard. Okay. Game 1 starts. And Bullet Seed Lilligant says, I don't care about your Sash Smeargle. And Stonejourner, White Guard kept Overdrive somewhat in check, but nonetheless, Toxtricity just dishing out damage with that Tailwind support. Damage the Tenderbros can't quite match in game 1, and so it goes to the Apple Isle Arcanines. In game 2, the Tenderbros decided to match that Tailwind with the Tornadus lead and Torkoal getting a full HP Eruption out, but Smeargle lives after receiving double def boosts and sets up Snow with Snowscape. No, not after. He ate the Eruption and then he set up Snowscape, if I remember correctly. So, which is wild. So that Smeargle just lived and then he got even another Spadef boost. But at this point he was very low. And yes, game 2 was wild, but Blood Moon Ursaluna in Tailwind was such a strong answer into Toxtricity, but also into Ogerpon with the Terra Flying that the Tenderbros took game 2. Game 3 was a wild ride as well, and really well played by either player. Prankster taunt, denying the Tailwind, but after you Torkoal in the sun, one-hit KOs Toxtricity regardless. While Hydreigon was wrecking knockouts with Draco Meteors, even with the drops. And a play rough miss by Ogerpon in the very end. An insane game 3 taken ultimately by the Super Tenderbros. So it was quite a spectacle, and I recommend everyone to give it a watch if you haven't yet. Anything do you want to add before we jump into the most creative sets and the honorable mentions?
No, let's jump right in.
All right.
And I do think we start with the honorable mentions, right?
Perfect,
so,
exactly.
On my hand, I do like Screamtail with Psychic Terrain to boost the specs. Expanding Force on Iron Crown. There was the Terraflying Blood Moon that you mentioned, just to keep Ogerpon in check. Also very nice Snowscape Smeargle. It wasn't that impactful, but it was very creative indeed. And we do like creativity in the builder. And who was the MVP?
The MVP is none other than my biggest nightmare this week. It was the Ninetales with the wide lens. Terra Steel, the Heatwave, but most importantly, the Snarl and the Will-O-Wisp just keeping my lineup in check perfectly.
Yeah, it doesn't look too flashy, but it just really answers everything on your team, especially. So it was a very, very creative building indeed. And shout out to Tenryu and the Roaring Moon Ravagers. It was the second time in 3 weeks that his team won the MVP for the most creative set. So very nice indeed.
It really did its job so well. Like the entire kit was used. The drought ability made it so my hydro pumps from Iron Bundle did nothing. The heat wave took care of me not being able to safely switch in my precious Goldengo. The Snarl also just diminishing those freeze dries that were threatening into the Roaring Moon. The Will-O-Wisp completely making Ting-Lu basically a third Pokemon on the field for the Roaring Moon Ravagers. And so the entire kit just like got utilized, which is really cool to see. And that brings us to the traits already. Traits, just one trait, Roaring Moon Ravagers. They drop Conkeldurr and Rotom Fan. They pick up the Tauros Paldea. Blaze?
Blaze breed, yes.
And the Gliscor. So Gliscor hitting the scene. That's very interesting.
It also hit the field for week 3. Little foreshadowing, because we already played yesterday evening.
That would be week 4 already. That's
Yes.
crazy. It's actually already week 4. Alrighty, we switch over. We're gonna check our board here. The new leaderboard looks as follows. On the first place with, well, this is already a spoiler.
This is a spoiler.
I mean, it's already posted on the Discord as well. So, but yeah, we have the Maracuya VGC.
Yes.
But kind of like sneaking into that first spot when for week 3 it actually would be the Super Tandebros on the first spot.
I was also undefeated week 3. Okay. So it could have been a tie, right?
Well, now I actually don't remember, but nonetheless,
I don't remember as well.
The Basel City P-Blades, me on the third place, I take it. We have Suga on the 4th, Seb on the 5th, Tenry on the 6th, Sensatio Sensatio on the 7th, Ruby on the 8th, John on the 9th, Jason on the 10th, T-Biscuit on the 11th, and Happy on the 12th. So anything can still happen. We're at the beginning. This is a 11-week season before the playoffs hit. Let's look into the Poké leaderboards as well. And what do we find here? We have the Lottermane being the kill leader of this draft so far.
It is also a bit skewed because the week 4 were already added. But still, if you just look at the Fluttermane, it had to play 11 games just to get as many KOs as Dragonite did in 4. And even with the difference of a +9, which is insane. And nothing really changed. We had Jason's Wheezing Galar still up there. We have Sugar's Armarouge, which just claims KO after KO. The Ursaluna, after sitting out week 2, it got back into action. And it's also sitting at 8 kills. Wellspring Ogerpon with the Source Dance set in 6th position, and so on and so forth. There are some Pokemon that you can respect. So if you face your opponent for the upcoming week, have a look at the leaderboard, see what they like to use to take those sneaky KOs, and maybe tact especially against it. Get yourself the MVP with your own Ninetales with Snarl and Will-O-Wisp, I guess.
Alrighty, then that's it for week 3 recap. Hope you enjoyed it, and we're going to see each other in the next week. Have fun in the builder.
See ya next week.